There were over 9,000 cases of coronavirus in Florida yesterday, with almost 2,000 in Miami-Dade County, which encompasses the city of Miami. We're joined now by Miami Mayor Francis Suarez. Mayor, always good to chat with you. So we've all just been talking about coronavirus and how the cases are surging and spiking around the country. Wondering if you can break down for us how Miami is being impacted right now.
We're just like every other major city in America. We're seeing a surge as well. We had gotten things down by having a mask mandate with fines. We had gotten it down to about 350 cases a day, up from a high of 3,500 cases a day in Miami-Dade County. So we just yesterday had 1,900. So we're fastly going back towards rapidly going back towards the high point. Our hospitalizations went from in the low 300s to the mid to upper 500s. So they've almost doubled in a very short period of time. So we're definitely seeing some alarming trends that have us very concerned.
So alarming trends. Are there any plans for any restrictions in Miami? Any lockdowns do you anticipate coming down the pike?
We have an issue with that because our governor, who at the beginning had given us a tremendous amount of local control to basically do whatever it is that we want to do. We were the first city that locked down. We were the first city to implement a mask in public rule. He's taken away our ability to do those things. So I'm hoping to talk to him over the next couple of days and at least impress upon him that as things get worse, to give us back that local control so we have a variety of tools in our toolbox. The one that we saw that was extremely effective was the mask in public rule. We were fining people $150 for not wearing it, and we saw a 90% decrease 2 weeks after we implemented that rule, which is about right with the incubation period. So we're just hopeful that we get that local control because we want to be able to do what we've done before effectively.
So, Mayor, I'm really glad that you mentioned that, essentially how you're not really able to do certain things because of Florida's Governor Ron DeSantis. And I want to remind everyone at home, just in case anyone thinks that there's some sort of partisan politics going on here, Mayor Suarez is a Republican, just like the Republican governor in the state of Florida. So I want to ask you, Mayor, do you think that currently Governor DeSantis is essentially hobbling other mayors inside the state of Florida in your attempts to keep residents safe from this virus?
Yeah, look, there's absolutely no disputing that his order prevents us from doing some things that we would like to be doing. There's just it's not a debatable thing. It is what it is. He has a slightly different philosophy than what we have. And, every time I talk to him, we sort of debate back and forth on what we think is the best thing. I think at the end of the day, what I want to press upon him and what I hope I'm able to communicate to him is that, we should have the control that he gave us at the beginning. He was very good about giving us the control to be able to make decisions, and we used it effectively. We did, we're the first ones, again, to have locked down. We were the first ones to implement a mask in public rule. We shut down major events. We were the first city, one of the first cities in America to shut down major events in anticipation of the coronavirus really taking hold in the city. So we just want the control to be able to make decisions. And we are consulting with the National Coronavirus Task Force with Dr. Fauci and Dr. Birx on a weekly basis. And they agree that we should be methodical in the remediation measures that we take to protect people.
I know that you say that you're essentially have your hands tied by the governor. Is there no room, or what would happen if you decided to essentially flout the governor and say, listen, I'm the mayor of Miami. I know what you said for the state of Florida. I'm going to do what I need to do for the residents in this city. We're going to implement some measures.
Yeah. Well, the problem would be, like, let's say, for example, the fining with the masks. Let's say we started fining people and we didn't have the ability to fine people. All they would have to do is sue us, and they would essentially get a court order that prevents us from doing that because it would be prevented by the governor's order. One thing that did get held up was our curfew. We do have a curfew, and the governor's order did, to some extent, there was a debate about whether or not it impacted the curfew. One business sued, and they lost a suit because they were trying to invalidate the curfew. So that is a tool that we still have at our disposal. But other than that, we have very, very little tools. He's increased the capacity of all businesses to 100%, which is obviously an issue for indoor activities. And that's one of the things that we're seeing and that we believe is part of the spread. He also opened up all bars and nightclubs, which were previously closed with his order.
Are you hopeful that once we get a new administration in the White House, that I know what you're saying from the governor, but at least federally on a national level, that there will be some mandates coming down that are going to even supersede what the governor wants or doesn't want inside the state?
For me, this is not political, as you mentioned. It should not be political. I certainly would hope and know some of the people, for example, on the vice president, president-elect's task force, and it's and those people obviously are very, very qualified people, just like Dr. Birx, Dr. Fauci, Dr. Redfield from the CDC, and Dr. Adams, the Surgeon General. So I really enjoyed working with the coronavirus task force, and I know former Surgeon General who's on the vice president's task force as well. And that president-elect, that to me, I think is important, because we need that kind of federal guidance so that we have sort of a second opinion, if you will, to make sure that that everything that we're doing is on the right track.
So I want to move now from coronavirus. I'm so grateful that we have so much time to be able to chat with you today, Mayor. So I want to ask you essentially about your perspective on the ground, at least on an economic level. We heard that Treasury Secretary Mnuchin essentially is moving to end the Fed's lending programs, those emergency lending programs. And he's essentially citing improved economic data, right? That these programs aren't really needed. I saw your face react just now. I'm sure everyone did at home. So give us what's happening on the ground. How is the city of Miami doing financially? How are the residents doing financially and economically?
Well, I can just tell you right now, right before this interview, I was with Magic Johnson for a healthcare company that he works with, giving out free turkeys to people in our city for Thanksgiving. And we had 500 cars stacked up, bumper to bumper for several, maybe miles. So I can tell you that the need is incredibly great. We also just got our first tranche of CARES money that we put out immediately to small businesses and to residents in our community. And the need far outweighs the supply in terms of help. So I'm not sure what data, Mnuchin is relying on to make that determination. I can tell you on the ground in an urban city like Miami, and I'm sure it's no different in any other major city in America, the need is incredibly great. And people are still struggling because our economy has not come back completely and still has a long way to go.
Now, Mayor, the last time we talked, it was the end of September. So I do want to, lastly, before you go, ask you about the elections. I think people were pretty surprised to see how well, actually, Trump had performed among Latinos in the city of Miami. I wonder if you're thinking that the politics and perhaps the dynamics are changing in the city, that more folks are voting Republican.
What happened, I think, is the president, for 4 years, to his credit, systematically came down to Miami and just continued to harp on the issue of socialism. When you look at what happened in Venezuela, when he recognized Guaido, the interim president of Venezuela, his basically rolling back all the Obama era policies with regards to Cuba, he essentially ingratiated himself tremendously with those major communities in this country, and in this county. And so he did, to his credit, he did a good job. And I think it was just very difficult for the Democrats at that point, after 4 years of the president being president and dealing with those issues in ways that spoke to our residents. It was just too difficult for the Democrats to be able to message around that. And so not only did the president do well in Dade County, where he had lost it in 2016 by 30 points to Hillary Clinton, he ended up losing it by 8 points to President Biden. He did very, very well throughout the entire part of South Florida. And that difference, that basically 300,000 vote difference, is what accounts for the difference between him winning Florida by 100,000 votes in 2016 and him winning Florida by 400,000 votes in 2020.